Hi, this is Russ Schmidt, head football coach of the Soto Dragons. You're listening to the Parkland Sports Live Show.
Hi, and welcome to the Knuckleball Primetime live from the Barn Studio in Southeast Missouri. And we are joined online right now with Coach Russ Schmidt of the Desoto Dragons. How are you, Coach?
Good. How are you?
Doing really good. Thanks for joining us today. Friday, September 13th at North County Raider Field in Bonne, Terre, Missouri. Parkland Sports Live will have your full coverage of the Parkland Podcast Facebook page and the Barn YouTube channel as the Desoto Dragons take on the North County Raiders in Week 3. Coach, we're excited for this Friday.
We're excited for the opportunity. It's always a fun time to come down to North County.
And the Dragons are 1-1, and I think have shown some improvements from last year, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Week 1 was a nice win against Freeburg. 2 was a close one against Perryville. You know, what headed into Week 3, what have you learned about the Dragons so far?
Well, I think any outsider that's looked at the program from outside hopefully can see the improvement that our kids have made, and that I tell people close that we have had a year together now, which we didn't have last year. I came in May. I met my staff in May, essentially had my first staff meeting in May, and I found myself coaching kids and coaching coaches as to those expectations that I wanted as a head coach. Now you move forward. I've got a full year under my belt, having learned my staff, just a great group of people I work with, and getting to know the kids much better. And I think that in itself has helped raise our expectations of what we needed to do. And we had a good solid off season, which we haven't had here in a while. Coach Sobel, our strength and conditioning coach, put us in a really good situation in the off season. So although it's only one season, we realize you have to start stacking those in order to have sustained success. That certainly has helped our mindset as we enter this 2024-25 season. And I think Friday night was just a product of that. I'm not so sure we don't lose that game last year, 42-6 with the bunch we had. But because these kids want to compete and understand the expectations are raised, we got a much more competitive football game.
Yeah, and we talked to Coach Jones earlier this week. He obviously looked at the film of you guys, and he mentioned that. He mentioned that maybe some earlier DeSoto teams would have checked out, or, you guys, I think, were down 31-14 in the fourth, and you show a lot of resiliency in coming back and making that a close game. Do you feel that way as well?
Yeah, there was roughly a little over 5 minutes left. And, obviously Perryville's in the driver's seat. And, we had 3 timeouts, and we used them on a defensive series where, we were in a situation where we got a couple stops to mitigate the clock so we get the ball back and try to score. Kids were a little bit confused at that point because they've not been used to situational football like that. So after the first time out, I had to explain to them this whole process and scenario, how it's going to play out. I said, we don't want to allow them to win. We don't want to allow them to win with 13 or more points. And I think that's, from a fan in the stands, they don't see the behind the scenes stuff like that. Coach Roth isn't trying to run a score up on the Dragons, but yet he's wanting to win by 13 or more points. And likewise, we don't want that to happen at our end. So we're using our timeouts. We get a quick score. We come back, get another quick score, and all of a sudden we're at 50 some odd seconds left attempting an onside kick that potentially could put those kids in a situation to win a football game. And it's something that hasn't happened in a while here at DeSoto. So that stick-to-itiveness and not quitting really is a product of our offseason.
Do you feel like you just ran out of time? Like if we could magically put a little extra time on the clock, do you think the outcome of that game changes?
Well, I think you have to give credit to the Perryville Pirates. They get 2 takeaways in the first half, and those 2 takeaways become touchdowns. And I told the kids at the end of the game, if we not given the ball away twice and scored on one of those possessions, obviously it's a different outcome, but that's the would have, should have, could have. It's a learning lesson in high school football. You go back to week 1, we take the ball away 5 times and we don't give it up any. And we win a football game. This week or last week, we give it up twice and we lose a football game. So it's simple math. And the kids, it's that football IQ that we're really working on and trying to improve with our kids. That's important that they understand how these things impact the outcome of football games.
Talk about your senior quarterback, Austin Meesey, and your assessment of his play so far, specifically with, his vision on the field and his decision making. Talk about his play so far this year.
He's a 4-year starter that's been through a lot of hard times here at DeSoto, and yet he stuck with us. He stuck with his teammates. He's a captain. He's a leader on the football team. He's a kid now that comes off the field and can identify a defense and can tell you what he's seeing, which is a big help. Even though we've got all the technology that teams possess, it's still when kids can come over and have a conversation with you about what they're seeing, that helps a little bit more. And getting into halftime and making adjustments. I mean, it's no secret, he's our swizzle stick. He's what keeps us going, and we have to keep him healthy and be mindful to put him in a position to make plays for us.
You mentioned taking over the program last year, and we're into week 3 at this point, so it's very early on in your tenure as a coach at DeSoto. But how close do you feel like the program is to where you envision that you want it to be?
Well, that's a good question. And I think a lot of that depends upon not only the future of this season, but just the future success of the kids and their interest. I know our staff is completely bought in. I know our kids on the current roster completely bought in. Our younger kids, our numbers are good. We've started a youth football program, which DeSoto hasn't had in over a decade, 14 years. So, and we had to turn people away because we didn't expect the kind of support that we got. So the community supports this football. And that's the one thing I noticed last year after every loss. I would tell the kids to look at the stands because they would be packed. I go, we got to do better. We got to do a better job representing this community and this school district to get that kind of support that's behind you. It's just incredible. And that's something that I'm very appreciative of, I know, as a coach, because I've been a part of success in the past and what that support looks like. And yet we struggle. We're having our struggles here, but yet we still have the support. So getting the kids to understand the importance of that.
Last week, Brenton Drummond had a nice little punt return, almost took it to the house, but put you in a pretty good position as far as getting into the end zone. Talk about some of his athleticism and how the big play can really springboard into more success on the field, whether it's on offense and defense, because I know he had some pretty nice plays on defense as well.
Yeah, if you go back to week 1, he had almost 100 yards rushing. He had an interception and a fumble recovery on defense, and he's the smallest guy in the football field. So that tells you what kind of contributions that he can make. And then this last week, he decided, on the punt return, there was another contribution. So it's no secret he's important to our football team and our success. And Brenton's a wrestler, and I think that's a big shout out to our wrestling program, because those kids that wrestle and play football, those are a coach's dream, and we've got quite a few of them on our roster. We'd love to see more of our football players wrestling for our wrestling program, because the success that some of our kids are having are a direct correlation because they understand how to compete on a wrestling mat. And Brenton's certainly one of those kids.
You hear coaches often talk about the 3 phases of football, right? How much emphasis do you put on special teams? Because we're talking big play, but we're also talking about limiting big plays as well. How much time do you put into that?
We do. I think back in the past, that's something that I completely controlled as a head coach. It's funny, we're having this conversation on the eve of playing North County, but one of the 2 things that I was empowered with in my former stop at Festus was to shore up our special teams, and we have to be able to go down and compete at North County. And I learned real quick that was a tall order, because it's a tough place to play, but nonetheless, I felt like we were competitive each and every year we went down there. And so now you fast forward, and last year was a learning curve with my staff with special teams, and we really spent a lot of time in the offseason getting to know each other and doling up those responsibilities. spent a lot of time on it in practice, and very mindful that that was the pendulum that swung last year when North County came to DeSoto. They opened up the game with a kickoff return. Just a bad situation and never got better. And those are momentum plays. We talk about that as to the kids, that anytime you block a punt, return a kickoff, return a punt return, block an extra point, those are momentum swinging plays that could affect the outcome of a football game that people don't realize the importance of. That's why we spend as much time with it. So as we prepared for North County, we realized they have a real good return game and very athletic, can run all over the field on their special teams. So we're trying to create matchups where we can compete with them this Friday.
North County stands at 1-1 as we sit here going into week 3, with both outings looking pretty good. I mean, I think they shocked a lot of people with their week 1 win against Farmington. The young quarterback played pretty well. And even in the loss, they were making a comeback, and it was a pretty close game. What have you seen on film as far as North County goes, and what are some of the emphasis of the game and some of the things that you think might help the Dragons win?
Like you said, two different games. The first game you have to look at, that's a bit of rivalry game. It's like Hillsboro and Festus up here. That's the big game down there, and obviously. North County rose to the occasion that night and played at a very high level. And then they play a school that's much bigger than them out of Illinois last week, that, for all intents and purposes, they competed with for 4 quarters. It's just a little bit bigger opponent, but nonetheless, their speed, their overall team speed is really a concern for us. Coach Jones does a really good job of creating formation mismatches offensively and defensively. They run the ball very well, get aligned correctly. So it's a traditionally sound North County football team that we have a great deal of respect for, that we're preparing for.
They returned 4 of the 5 linemen on the offensive line and some defensive line as well. How important do you think the front lines in this game will be for you guys?
I think it's critical to any team's success. I mean, it's not only us. It's just look at other schools. It's you look at Hillsboro's success last year going to the state championship game. That was an offensive line that had been together for a year and a half, or 2 years. So anytime you can return 5 starters in the box like that, you've got continuity and success, and that will oftentimes mask any kind of a deficiency you might have in the backfield at times as they develop. And that might be the case as that young quarterback develops. They're hiding some things until he gets caught up to speed, but they're doing a great job on both sides of the ball. And we've spoken to our kids about that Monday in film, that, it's the battle of the trenches. It's going to, eventually, both of us, I feel like we both have skilled positions, but I don't know that we possess the depth that they do in the offensive and defensive lines.
I mentioned we talked to Coach Jones, and he said he has a ton of respect for you guys. And I think through coaching against each other for maybe even decades at this point, you guys have built a friendship. Tell us a little bit about your friendship with Coach Jones and the respect that you have for him and his program.
Well, I don't know that respect is probably a word you could use, but maybe a love for a human being. Coach Jones was a player when this is year 35 for me coaching. So Coach Jones, I watched play for North County as a player in high school, and I've watched him evolve as a good leader of men and a good football coach, a great football coach. He's someone that I support. We support each other. We have spent a lot of time with our families in the off season. So this is the game that we both talk about. It's not that we don't like playing it, but we hate playing it because of the friendship involved. This will not be a handshake at midfield. It'll be a hug at midfield. And I will tell him that I love him because that's how I feel about him. But he's, we both have the same values in our programs, and we share a lot of commonalities in that sense. So it's a lot of mutual respect. I really enjoy having conversations with his staff as well. He's he surrounded himself with a lot of good people, and that's why they've had the success that they've had at North County.
Do you think that can be a good lesson for young men to see? Right, I can respect you, but I can be a competitor and I want to beat you as well.
I think that has gotten lost in high school sports. I think it's all about winning. And obviously, we all want to win, but we've lost that respect value. I think it's not only for the coaches, but it's for the officials. I think we've lost respect for officials, and that's something that as coaches, we have to model that behavior to be good representation of ourselves, a better version, so that we're in a state of the union right now where we're losing officials. So we want to make sure we're treating those guys with respect. Do we always agree with every call they make? No, but there's a situation now, like when they're mic'd up and they got their earpieces in, you shouldn't have 5 coaches yelling at an official. You talk to the guy on your sideline. And I always tell the crews that are mic'd up, I'm going to talk to the guy on my sideline, and the white hat in the middle of the field is going to tell me everything I know by his body language. Because if he agrees with me or disagrees, he's going to look over the sideline and have some mannerism for me. So that's all I need. I just want to know that my voice has been heard. I don't need 5 coaches yelling at the officials, making a bad situation worse.
Lastly, Coach, how important is team sports and specifically football for helping shape young men?
I just think the values and lessons learned. I'm a bit old school in those values. I don't like the fact that on Friday nights we sign people out to go home. My requirement is we breathe and die together. So if we lose a game, we're all going to ride the bus back. I think some of the best memories I have in high school sports are those bus rides back from wins and losses, and the stories that you share. So we talked about that. Ironically, yesterday after practice, I had to render some discipline for some situations that happened, and I told the kids, I said, these are things I don't like to have to spend practice time doing. Nor do I have to, I should have to call parents. If I have to, then it's taken out of my hands. So I think in today's society, we're an extension of mom and dad. And I think it's important to have these conversations in parent meetings that, these are the things that we're doing for your sons and daughters in all sports, because I don't think they realize the conduit that we become for their kids, because you're not sitting down at the dinner table anymore having those conversations with your children. It's the coaches. It's become our responsibility in the 21st century to be modeling that for them. So that's one of the big reasons I've not gotten out of coaching, because there's such a need for kids. And I think a lot of kids gravitate to sport and competition because they have no one else to talk to at home. They find this is a release for them.
Friday, September 13th at North County Raider Field in Bonne, Terre, Missouri, the Desoto Dragons take on the North County Raiders. Coach, thanks so much for joining us today, and good luck on Friday.
Thank you for your coverage. I appreciate it.